me help you. Because many of y'all run around here talking about, I'm looking for a word from God. I'm looking for a word from God. And God will give you a word and you'll miss it. It'll just leave you. You will miss what thus saith the Lord because it didn't come the way you wanted to hear it. All right, so I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. I'm going to tell you that if you've been looking for a word from God, there is a word from God. All right, and it's going to push you, propel you into your destiny. All right, not that other stuff. All right, John chapter 11. What I want to do is I want to take a look at some verses 5 through 14, and then I want to jump down to 20 through 34, and we'll conclude at verse number 34. All right, so John chapter 11, and beginning at verse number 5. And I'm reading from the New King James Version here. It says, Jesus loved Martha and her sisters and Lazarus. Yet when he heard that Lazarus was sick, now listen to this, he stayed where he was 2 more days. Okay, that's intentional. He did that on purpose. Lazarus is sick, and instead of going to Lazarus immediately, the Bible said he stayed away on purpose 2 more days. That's very significant. All right, I hope you caught that. Verse number 7, then he said to his disciples, let us go back to Judea. And the disciples said, but Rabbi, they said a short while ago that the Jews tried to stone you, and yet you are going back there? Jesus answered and said, are there not 12 hours of daylight? A man who walks by day will not stumble, for he sees by this the world's light. It is when he walks by night that he stumbles, for he has no light. Now Jesus just spoke in parable here to the disciples, and listen to what they say. And he says, he went to tell them, now this is Jesus speaking, he says, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep at night. This is what he's talking about. But I'm going there to wake him. And watch what the disciples said. Listen to what they said, because this is going to be crucial. This is where we're going to juxtapose here. Verse number 12. His disciples replied, Lord, if he sleeps, he will get better. Your Bible may say he will awaken. Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. Okay, now make sure you mark that. Make sure you mark that. That's critical, because we're going to build on that. Verse 14 here, verse 14. So then he told them plainly, because they missed it, Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I'm glad I was not there, so that you may believe. Let us go to him. All right, now jump down to verse number 20. Right down to verse number 20. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him. But Mary stayed at home. Okay, now watch this very quickly. Martha hears that Jesus is coming, and she gives him the respect and the decency and the dignity that she always does to go and meet the master. Mary is so upset and so offended and so grieved that she says, I ain't going to church no more. I'm going to go stay home. And she stays home. All right, did you catch that? All right, now here we go. But Mary stayed home. So Martha goes and says, Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Now, this is passive-aggressive. It's passive-aggressive. Passive-aggressive are some of the most difficult and damaging people to ever deal with. Because passive-aggressive people will not punch you when they encounter you or confront you. They're not going to punch you face-to-face. What they will do is punch you with their words. And the words that they say are more damaging than actually being hit in the face, because I can see that coming and I can move to the side, I can duck. But when you punch me with words, it'll hit me and I'll usually catch it when I'm gone. See, let me help you. I got a real sardonical tongue, got a real sarcastic tongue. And the Lord's working with me. He's working with me. Ain't he working with me, Angela? Okay, all right. So oftentimes, what will happen is you will say something to me, and I will hit you with sarcasm. And it's so sharp and it's so smooth that you don't even realize that I cut your head until you get ready to turn your head. Then you realize that you've been cut by what I said. Why? Because it's not in what I said, it's how I said it. Okay, real smooth, like a surgeon. All right, but it's still wrong. And that's what they just did to Jesus. That's what they just did to Jesus. It wasn't what they said, it was how they said it. All right, now watch this, Mary. Martha says, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. But I know that even now she's trying to clean it up. I know that even now that God will give you whatever you ask. And Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. All right, watch this. Martha answered and said, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Now, this is the same thing. Make sure you mark that. Make sure you mark it, because it's the same thing that the disciples just did and Martha just did. And I'm going to tell you what they did here in a minute. Martha says, at the last day, he's going to rise again. Okay, we all know that, Jesus. And Jesus says to her, he says, I am the resurrection, and I am the life. And he that believes in me will live. And he, though he may be dead, he will live forevermore. Who believes in me will never die. Do you believe this, is what he asked. Verse 27, she says, yes, Lord. So she told him, I believe that you are the Christ. Now, please highlight that. You are the Christ. You are the Christ. You are the Christ. Now, this is important. Why is this important? Because up until this account, no one has identified him as the Christ. And what's really important is that Jesus asked the disciples after he has raised Lazarus from the dead, who do men say that I am? And then he poses or presents the question, who do you say that I am? And it is really, really important that none of them Negroes could identify who he is, but one of them, who is Peter. And my question would be, does Peter really know that he's the Christ, or is he only repeating what he heard Martha say? Okay, we'll deal with that just because I won't make y'all a theological class. This is seminary 101, so I'm going to help you to start to think here. All right, here it is. And verse 27, she says that thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God, who has come into the world. And after this, she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside and says, the teacher is here. She said, and he is asking for you. Now, let me help you, because you missed that. You missed that, Tashira. He didn't ask. What did she just do? She just lied after she said that the man was the Christ. The moment that she had got into the presence of God and saw that God was here, the next thing the girl did was lie. Ooh, it's getting real scandalous up in here tonight. Oh, yeah, we're going to help some folk in here tonight. The girl just stood up there and lied, because Jesus didn't ask for Mary. He didn't ask for her. But what she was trying to do is put Mary into the presence of God. Now, I'm going to help you real quick. I'm going to help you. Sometimes you have to push people into the presence of God. If you're going to lie about anything, please lie to get them to the presence of God. Because the Lord knows how to clean up that lie. He knows how to clean it up. He can clean that up. But all that other stuff, we'll deal with that in a minute. Okay, we'll deal with that in a minute. All right. So she says that the master is calling for you. Verse 29. And when Mary heard this, what did she do? She got up quickly and went to him. Now, Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. Verse 31, when the Jews who had been with Mary in the house comforting her noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. Verse 32, when Mary had reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet. Now let me park in, because once I'm only going to teach for about 15 minutes. I'm going to touch it real hard, and I'm going to let y'all go. All right. But what I want you to catch here, please remember that this woman is the same woman that we theorize about, who has washed Jesus' feet with her tears and dried them with her hair. And is it not strange? Is it not coincidental? Is it not providential? Is it not a setup by God that the very place that she started her worship, she returns to complete her worship? Before she asks God to do what she wants him to do, she does what she knew worked the first time. Because she got his attention when she was crying on the man's feet and dried them with her hair. So the only thing that she knew was to return to what would work. Is it not funny that this woman goes right back down on her knees in between Jesus' feet and washes them with her tears and dries them with her hair? All right, so now here's what it is. This is what she says. This is what she says. She says, Lord, if you would have been here, my brother wouldn't have died. And when Jesus saw her weeping, she's crying